Your Dog's Friend is a nonprofit 501c3 whose mission is to help keep dogs out of shelters by educating and supporting their humans. We promote positive method of training and behavior modification through stress-free methods. As part of that mission, we offer free webinars like the one you're about to watch. Subjects range from dog behavior, stress-free training, and other tools to help you understand your relationship with your dog. If you liked the webinar, be sure to give us a thumbs up. Click the notification bell and subscribe to our channel. By subscribing, you'll be notified when future videos are posted. Now enjoy the webinar.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to your Dog's Friend webinar series. Today's webinar is about small dogs. This is the second time this webinar has been presented. That's how much I loved it the first time. Let me introduce you to our speaker. Juliana DeWillems actually has too many trainer and behavior certifications for me to mention them all. She is also on the faculty of the Karen Pryor Academy, a top program for positive dog trainers. Juliana is the owner of JW Dog Training, which offers virtual coaching and in-person lessons in Northern Virginia, mainly Arlington, Falls Church, Tysons, McLean, and Great Falls. She has presented a number of webinars for your dog's friend, and we are always delighted to have her back. Remember to put your questions in chat. We will get to as many as possible. And I also want to remind you that your dog's friend is a nonprofit. We survive on donations, and if you are so inclined, you can find our donations icon on the homepage of our website in the upper right corner. That's yourdogsfriend.org. One more thing I'd like to ask. Great Nonprofits has reviews that we would like to accumulate so that we can get a 2023 nonprofits badge from them. We've gotten it every other year. And the way you can help is to go to greatnonprofits.org and put your friends in the search. We definitely appreciate any help you can give us. I know that you will learn a lot today from Juliana's webinar, and I'm turning it over to you, Juliana.
Thank you, Deborah. Okay, hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to go ahead and jump in and share my screen, make sure we're all running well, and jump into my presentation. Okay, so as Deborah said, I am Juliana DeWillems, and I own JW Dog Training in the Washington, D.C. area, but we do service virtually all over the country and all over the world. And I deal with myself and my team deal with anything from new puppies to helping adopted dogs to reactivity and aggression. So we really deal with it all. And to say that this topic today is near and dear to my heart is a gross understatement. I absolutely love small dogs. I have my own small dog who I'll talk about. And I think small dogs are the greatest dogs ever. Not that I'm biased, but I think they need more attention than they get. And I am thrilled to be able to talk about it here. A few housekeeping things real quick. I do have the chat open. I'm going to maybe put it up on my own screen, but I also have it off screen where I can see your questions. Please ask questions about the content. If you need clarification for anything, if you have a question, it's likely that somebody else has it as well. When it comes to my dog questions, so specific questions about you or specific dogs, I have to be careful about answering those because I want to make sure that we get through all the content and that what we talk about applies to everyone. So you are welcome to put your question in the chat, but I might have to save it for later or ask you to email me offline because we have 2 hours here, but I really try hard not to keep you for the full 2 hours. So I'm hoping to kind of get through this, maybe have some good discussion, talk about all things small dogs, and just kind of celebrate these little guys in the way that they deserve, that I feel strongly that they deserve. So put your questions in the chat. So Let me first talk a little bit about my own small dog, Lola. Now, I worked in animal sheltering prior to becoming a private dog trainer, and those shelters, while they do have a lot of small dogs, they have a lot of kind of pit bull type dogs, and really thought I was a big dog person, and I'm like, oh, those small dogs, whatever, and eating my words now, but I really was not partial to small dogs. And then I ended up with Lola, and she came into my life when she was middle-aged, about 5 or 6 years old. And she has opened my world and my eyes to small dogs. She is now closer to 11. She's from a backyard breeder, actually. So my wife didn't know anything about dogs at the time, disclaimer, she works in animal rescue now, so she's made up for her kind of misjudgments at the time. But this was over a decade ago, and she found Lola on Craigslist, and Lola has terrible breeding. Lola has really traumatic start to life. So Lola's a big walking, like what you shouldn't do when looking for a dog, but she's here and she's with us, and she teaches us so much. Lola has been diagnosed by a veterinary behaviorist with anxiety and fear-based aggression, which we're going to talk about is very common with these little guys. But Lola has made me realize how incredible small dogs are, what they are capable of, what their potential is. So I use Lola in a lot of my examples today, but she's not the only one. I have a lot of other examples. This is me and her out playing last fall, and then her at this up on the knee there. We live out in Leesburg, Virginia. We go downtown to Leesburg quite often, and she's really come a long way in her behavior modification journey. So she's able to join us in some patio settings, like go downtown with us. She's certainly not like a crowds girl, but neither am I. So she's come a really long way, and her world has been able to open up quite a bit. And so we're able to take advantage kind of of how portable she is, which is one of the benefits, but also something we'll talk about as one of the misconceptions people have about small dogs. And then in addition to Lola, I have a ton of other experience with small dogs. And this started in my time at animal shelters, which, goodness, at this point was 5 or 6 years ago. And I encountered tons of small dogs there because, unfortunately, they get rehomed, they get lost and come in as strays just as much as the big dogs, but they often get adopted more quickly because a lot of people want small dogs, but they also come in with a lot of the fear-based reactivity and aggression that we're going to talk about and that we see in these little guys, because what a traumatic experience to end up in a shelter where you don't know where, you're moving from one place to another. So I met a lot of those guys in animal sheltering. That in the bottom left is me doing computer work with a little shelter chihuahua on my lap. And most of the rest of these photos are from private clients. You can see the type of small dog kind of runs the gamut. Lola is a chihuahua and I am partial to chihuahuas, but I love all small dogs, especially, and also the furry ones. So I have quite a bit of experience with small dogs. Now, with dog training, there are so many terms and labels, and it's really important to define what we're talking about. So what is a small dog? What counts as a small dog? I think, it's kind of up for interpretation, but for the sake of this webinar today, it's helpful to define it. So of course, we have our toy breeds. Our toy breeds are going to be the smallest breeds that are bred for purpose, that have a closed gene pool and bred for purpose back in the day, and now are bred more to meet breed standards. But those are breeds that are bred to be small, and they fall under the toy category. If a mixed breed dog or another breed that's not in the toy category, if the internet says pretty much anything under between 20 and 22 pounds is considered a small dog. Again, does that put the dog at 23 pounds? Oh no, they're not counted anymore. No, but I think it's helpful to figure out a range. About that 20-pound range is kind of what we're talking about here. And again, a lot of the stuff that we talk about, if you do have a medium dog that's between the 20 and 30-pound range, I think a lot of helpful info for today. But I think a big thing with small dogs is that they're small enough to overpower. And that's going to be something we talk about a lot, is their size works at a disadvantage for them in terms of how they are expected to move through the world, how they do move through the world. So I think it's important to know that we're talking about these littles here. And that is something I call them as well. I call them littles. So let's talk about common small dog myths, okay? So these are things that are not true, but that society has unfortunately kind of pegged small dogs with, which is, as a small dog lover and behavior professional, extremely frustrating. So the Napoleon complex, oh, he thinks he's so big and bad, you know, he doesn't realize his size, you know, this kind of mislabeling their behavior as something else, that they think they're big and bad despite their small stature, which is absolutely not true. Another one, unfortunately, especially with the internet these days and the popularity of viral videos, is that small dogs reacting or being aggressive is funny. And this one just breaks my heart and enrages me all at the same time. In fact, there was a very popular TikTok page with a Chihuahua, with the owner jokes about how she's like teaching the dog to accept her love, and I don't really know what the point of the page is, but it's just this dog being triggered over and over and over again. And because often the damage that a small dog can do is going to be much less, people don't take them seriously, and it is just enraging. So I think education obviously is one of the best ways to combat this stuff. So I'm so grateful that you are here. I'm so grateful that people care about learning about small dogs. I'm assuming if you are here, it means you have a small dog. So amazing that you're here wanting to learn more about them, your own dog, and help them feel comfortable, because man, these little guys deserve it. And we plow through their communication and their autonomy all the time. I feel very strongly about it, as you can tell. And then another misconception is that their size means that they're automatically good apartment dogs. And while, yes, they take up less space, what you'll learn today is that small dogs, unfortunately, can be quite noise sensitive. They can be reactive. And in that case, being in an apartment complex where there's noises all the time, all around them, they're not actually going to be the best fit in some cases. So it's not, you know, small dogs can be incredible apartment dogs. I lived with Lola in an apartment for a very long time. Many of my clients live in apartments. But what's important to remember is that just because they're small dog doesn't make them automatically a good apartment dog. So this is the second time I'm giving this presentation, like Deborah said. And last time I made this probably 2 years ago. And I clipped this passage, which I'll read in a second. And I can't remember where I found it, but I think I might have found it on a dog trainer's page, which I'm going to read it and you're going to see why that's crazy. So this website said a hefty percentage of phone calls to dog trainers and behaviorists are for help with anxious owners of dogs that display small dog syndrome. The syndrome, which is also amusingly referred to as the Napoleon complex, occurs when your dog thinks he's the boss. Even though you may need a magnifying glass to see the dog, they are the absolute and unchallenged sovereigns over their empire thanks to you. The dilemma is most dogs don't want to be the boss, yada, yada. It's like some stuff about leadership and pack. This is like, excuse me, okay, it's BS. It's total nonsense. Like, these guys are not trying to be the boss. To call something a syndrome is like, that is a medical term, and we save those for actual medical syndromes. Like, these dogs do not have syndromes. They do not suffer from little dog syndrome. And to mislabel their behavior and put a story to it like this, that they're trying to be the boss, does an enormous disservice to figuring out what they are actually trying to tell you and what they're actually feeling. So I just cannot stress enough that be very careful about listening to people, whether it's kind of the professionals in your life or your friends or your family members who try to tell you that your little dog is just trying to be the boss. They are not. A lot of times they're actually really scared. A lot of times they're doing what is normal for their breed. And so to mislabel them like this, it's not a good idea, and it can be actually quite harmful. So what does make small dogs different from medium or large size dogs? I think society's view of them as purse dogs is huge. That is obviously nothing relating to them or their breed, but I think society's perception of small dogs, that they are just basically like living stuffed animals and can be taken everywhere, is not the way that we typically view larger dogs. I mean, the way somebody looks at a little Yorkie who is portable, who can fit in the purse and who can go places, the way somebody looks at them might be very different than the way that they look at a lab or a golden retriever, despite them both being dogs and both having very dog specific needs, which we will talk about. So it's not that I think it's necessarily bad that a dog's size leads people to taking them places, as long as we are looking at stress signals and making sure the dog is comfortable. But I think we forget that they are still very much dogs and they have dog specific species needs. Unfortunately, small dogs are very susceptible to puppy mills and poor breeding, again, because they are sometimes seen as an accessory. People get them online and they get them where they can easily find them, and they get them where they're the cutest. And not to mention, just like the logistics of a small dog in a puppy mill is going to be much easier than the logistics of a large dog in a puppy mill. There are puppy mills for all breeds, all sizes, but small dogs especially, I think, are so prone to being overbred, being bred without health standards, being bred in poor conditions, because people really want them. They're very popular and they're easy to confine into a small space. Small dogs have tightly wound nervous systems. They can be susceptible to anxiety and reactivity. So anxiety and reactivity, meaning like barking at noises, being hypervigilant, not being comfortable with a lot of situations that we might think or expect them to be comfortable in. So it is not uncommon for small dogs to be prone to alert barking or having stranger danger, being nervous around people. This is, for some breeds, very normal and bred into them. You know, Chihuahuas especially, they can be very barky. That's actually pretty normal for the breed for some level of barkiness. Same thing, you know, Yorkshire Terriers, they're still terriers, so they can have some of that terrier in them. You know, Jack Russell Terriers, my goodness, talk about breed specific behavior. They can, and again, I'm speaking super generally here. This whole thing, small dogs, what an umbrella, right? Like, so many dogs, both breeds and individuals, are going to fall under this. Please remember, this is all generalizations. But so again, this goes back to, we think that they're good apartment dogs, but then they actually can be quite reactive, and it's not necessarily because something is wrong with them. It is because of their breed sometimes. This is a really important one for small dogs, and this is very different than big dogs or larger dogs. The world exists above them. Everything exists so high above them. They can't access it. They can't see it. And more importantly, people are constantly leaning down and looming over them. This is so different. Well, dogs being reached towards or people reaching to them, we don't realize that's actually quite threatening for dogs. So especially for small dogs, where people can't really interact with them without reaching for them and reaching at them. So I think everything comes kind of more scary to them, potentially more threatening. So Anna asked, the smaller the dog is, the more tightly wound their nervous system. So great question, Anna. Okay, I am certainly not like a vet or a expert at anatomy. And I read this in a book about their tightly wound nervous system, and it really resonated with me. But then I started to realize, I don't know like how scientifically accurate the tightly wound nervous system is going to be in terms of how reactive a dog is. Again, I was like, oh, that makes sense. They're running tightly wound, which we know, a little tense and running anxious. So that would be a great question for somebody who knows way more about the medical side than me. Thank you for asking. So with small dogs, because they are small, the world exists above them, we are much larger than them. Small dogs are much less likely to have choice in interactions, meaning they cannot opt out. They cannot say, I'm uncomfortable, I don't want to do that. I would prefer not to. That scares me. That is not something I'm interested in. They don't have choice. And what we've learned is that choice is actually quite important for quality of life for dogs when safely possible. So when dogs have no choice in their life, we tell them when to walk, when to play, what to play with, where to be in the home, where to sleep. We take all choice away from them. That can actually lead to a not super great quality of life. The good news is for most of us, our dogs have choice of, okay, we have to go for a walk at this time, but you get to choose the walking route, or you get to choose where you sleep at night, on the bed with us or off the bed. And there are a lot of ways we can provide choice. I just think with small dogs, we are less likely to offer it, unfortunately. Going to take a quick peek at the questions. Marcy says, how on earth do I get people to stop reaching over my foster dog's head to pet her? She's small, blind. People don't listen when I say, don't do that. It scares her. So this is really important, advocating for your small dog. And I understand that it's uncomfortable to set boundaries with people or to say, no, you can't say hi, stuff like that. But it's a muscle that we really have to flex and practice using, because we really owe it to our dogs to advocate for them. And if somebody cannot be trusted to follow instructions in an interaction, that's not fair to our dogs to put them in a detrimental place. So I will physically body block. Lola can't say hi to people because she's fear reactive. She'll snap at people if they reach for her, which luckily, my body language is usually the first line of defense, where like I'm kind of getting off to the side, I'm feeding Lola treats, I'm engaging with the person, and somebody might say, oh, she's so cute. I say, oh, thank you. Oh, and luckily people know to ask to say hi, and they'll say, oh, can I say hi? I'll say, no, sorry, she's really nervous, but you can look, so people just do not interact with her. And she's very cute. She gets quite a bit of attention, but people are pretty good about not interacting. And I think that a lot of it is because of my body language. Like I don't even open the door for that interaction, but it's really, absolutely having a small dog does require us, unfortunately, to practice our people behavior skills, which if you're like me, confrontation is uncomfortable and telling people no can be uncomfortable, but it's gotten significantly easier over the years. There's a lot of good suggestions happening in the comments. I try to say nice, but what I've said is, sorry, but she is contagious, which does work. Yes, my dog has a contagious disease. We'll definitely get people to move away quickly. Thanks, everyone. A lot of good suggestions happening. So to briefly talk about small dog health issues, remember, I am not a vet, but these are very common with the littles. So because, unfortunately, those irresponsible breeders and the public want skews more towards like smaller and cuter and more puppy-like, breeding for those looks can absolutely cause genetic issues elsewhere, because it's unlikely that you are just selecting for one physical trait. Usually if you select for that physical trait, you're also getting other genetic changes along with it, maybe that maybe that you don't know. So unfortunately, the smaller, like I love applehead chihuahuas, love, cutest things on the planet, but unfortunately, they are becoming, a lot of breeders are breeding them totally irresponsibly with a big head and big eyes, and that's just not good for them. So it's very normal, like teacup Yorkies, those are very tiny, and I do not think, again, I'm not really an expert in like the AKC standards or the breed standards, but I think most Yorkie people would be pretty upset about the teacup Yorkie trend, where we're trying to get basically the tiniest dog possible. Collapsed tracheas are very common with the littles, meaning anything around their neck can cause irritation and cause trachea issues. I do have clients whose dogs have experienced both temporary trachea issues or long-term trachea issues from anything from, unfortunately, like the grooming collar that they wear on the grooming table, that can really irritate their trachea, to even just a flat collar. And even some dogs, if a harness comes up too high on their neck, it can irritate their trachea. And it sounds like a goose honking. It's a really terrible sound. And usually it's temporary, but some dogs it's long-term if it's bad enough damage. I think their little necks are just so fragile, which is, we'll talk in a minute about walking gear, but it's so critical to be very careful about what we put around their necks and how much pressure is put on there. I think collars can be important for identification, but I do not like walking small dogs on collars. Leslie asks, is that the same as a reverse sneeze? It's actually not. It does sound very similar. And when my client first told me about it, I was like, that sounds like a reverse sneeze, but no, it's not. It's very different. And a reverse sneeze is usually triggered by something, and the trachea can be just anytime. Well, usually it is a little bit of excitement, but no, it is different. Good question. Dental issues, super common for the small dogs. This is Fiona, Lola's sister, who passed away in 2019, and she had no teeth, because this one, she was a rescue, but she had, their teeth just go so quickly. If you can do preventative dental care, that can really help, but it still doesn't guarantee that the small dogs will keep all of their teeth. They're very common. So that's why Fiona's little tongue hung out. Luxating patellas, also common. I have a client whose 9-month-old small dog was diagnosed with luxating patellas. It's just, unfortunately, totally common in the littles. And then heart disease as well. We lost Fiona here to heart disease. Lola, her sister, has, not related sister, but Lola has a heart murmur. It can be very common, again, with the small dogs. Whether you have, I think, good breeding or not, if you have a purebred or a mixed breed, the littles can definitely come with heart disease. Joan asks, what is a luxating patella? So it is a knee issue. It is, great question. Not going to tell you officially what it is, but it is something with the knee and the kneecap, and like it goes out of position and things aren't where they're supposed to be. Depending on severity, it could require surgery. Some dogs are just on like supplements. So it totally, treatment depends, but yes, it's knee issues. Thank you for asking. I appreciate everybody asking for clarity. This is great. So small dogs can come with house training challenges. I think one of the biggest reasons, yes, they have smaller bladders, but if you think about their bladder relative to their size and their water intake, the ratio is still the same as a big dog. But I think oh, excellent. We had a vet chime in about a luxating patella. Thank you. Yes, loose kneecaps. Good. I wasn't so far off. So I do think small dogs can pee more frequently, but I think the bigger issue with house training is that they pee such a small amount, and they can go so quickly that it can be harder to notice when they go or when they're about to go. And then if you do catch them, which, remember, we don't punish, we just want to interrupt and get them outside. If you do catch them, they're already done. So I think the hard thing that comes with house training is just their ability to do it so quickly, and it's such a small amount, it can go undetected and therefore unaddressed. Another challenge with small dog house training is that we will often train them on like the pee pads that you see here. And then what can happen is they develop a substrate preference to anything kind of soft, which means good luck ever having carpets again. I may or may not be speaking from experience. Remember, a lot of Lola's life happened before I ever got to her. So I would have done some things differently if I had her as a puppy. But yes, it's great to have a small dog like in an apartment who goes on a pee pad. That is really, really helpful, especially because then they can go whenever they need to, which I think is awesome. But it can really come with challenges because then they develop substrate preferences and have a really hard time not going on anything soft. So, and I don't know what it is about small dogs. People are more inclined to use the pee pads, again, maybe because they're living in apartments more frequently. So if your dog is going on pads and not on your carpets, or you don't have carpets and it works for you, great. I think there can be some benefits, but it also comes with risks. And I do have many small dog clients, obviously, who have fully trained small dogs. I don't think they are impossible to house train. Just think you got to be careful of it, especially if you have them in their puppy stage, or if you adopted them and they, you don't know their house training habits. You just have to be on it and follow those puppy rules of where's the dog, keep eyes on the dog. They're either confined or outside, that whole thing, but something to keep in mind. Bridget says, still taking my 8-month-old out every couple of hours because I hear so much of this. No pee pads, but heard that pee pads won't train their bladder. Right. So, I mean, there is benefit to teaching a dog to hold it. You know me, like in the spirit of like, yay, choice and autonomy. I think it's great when dogs can choose to go when they need to, instead of having to hold it. Another thing that we kind of eliminate their choice for, but it just can come with some risks. And I just think if you can take them out frequently, it's great. So stairs are a big and important consideration with small dogs. Again, I am not a vet, especially now knowing we have vets representatives in the audience. I will not overspeak, but both my dog's vet and then clients that I've worked with, the dog either has back issues or we are proactively trying to prevent back issues or other injuries from jumping on and off furniture. So stairs can be really important. We have stairs up to the couch, and especially with Lola being 11 now, we have stairs up to the couch. We always had them on the bed because that's higher. And the tricky part, if you're going to introduce stairs, is if you have a dog who happily jumps on and off the couch, getting them to use the stairs, that can be really hard. And even as a trainer, like I have tried to change the behavior of a dog who loves jumping on and off beds, off stairs, off couches, and try to use the stairs. It's tricky, but it can be extremely, extremely important. And it can be a big preventative for creating back issues, leg issues, all sorts of stuff, because that's just a lot of pressure over and over and over again when they're jumping up and down. There's a ton of different kinds of stairs. You can find ones that match your house, that you like the look of the best. You can go plastic, you can go soft. There are a ton of options out there, but it can be really important for these guys to use them. When Lola launches herself off the bed and like splats on the ground, it's like, you wait for a second and it's like, are all 4 paws moving, she doesn't do that often, but if she's really excited or anything like that, and I'm glad that's not her go-to. Equipment for the littles is, and a ramp. Thank you, Catherine, for mentioning that. Ramps are also great. And Catherine said, I got a ramp for my bed for my little, and she just started jumping on the ramp from the side. Look, it's still not jumping all the way up to the bed or off the bed. So of course we wish they would take the ramp all the way down, which you can do some training, use treats and show them the way you want them to go. But when they're in those exciting moments, they're less likely to stop, think, and choose the ramp. Ooh, another great suggestion. Anne-Marie said, I just got one ramp, I'm assuming with railings. Excellent. Thank you all for sharing this stuff in the chat, because I think I come to small dogs with one lens, especially behavior focused lens, but it is so helpful to hear from others who have tried things that have worked and have not worked. So thank you. Now, equipment is so important, and especially, oh my gosh, for so many reasons, right? For me, what comes to mind is like the flight risk of it all, or like our dog's ability to get away. And I just imagine a small dog, like loose in the woods, where like, again, a lab lost in the woods, they're a little bit more obvious, but the littles, they can just sneak away and hide and never be seen again. So I am so crazy about secure equipment. And we just talked about the collapsed trachea. So we want to be really careful about the pressure on the neck. So I like body harnesses, comfortably fitting body harnesses. So I don't really have like a brand to go to. If your dog is big enough, rough wear is really great. We've used the balance harness with Lola. I do like to find a Y shape, which goes between their chests and up around their shoulders, which is what this Voyager, vote for Voyager. If you see in this little guy over here on the right, it's kind of in a Y shape. Now it's still, if you look at the side view, it still comes across his shoulder, excuse me, and could potentially inhibit shoulder movement, which we kind of want to avoid. Ideally, with these little guys, they have full range of motion with their shoulders. That being said, also comfort and security is very, very important. So find something that fits well, that gives your dog as much range of motion with their shoulders as possible, that doesn't inhibit movement, doesn't seem to be cutting them in anywhere. We had a harness that I loved to death, but the clip, and actually it looks similar to this guy on the side here, the clip kept hitting, anytime Lola would step, it would hit her elbow, which, like, she wasn't limping or anything, but it just didn't seem super comfortable. So we moved to something else. Also, if your dog has any handling sensitivities, think about what harness would be best and easiest to get on and off quickly. So there's a lot to consider. Leashes. I am a huge fan of longer leashes. So we have some data that suggests that dogs sniff more, which we're going to talk about the importance of sniffing later, but dogs sniff more when they're on a little bit longer, a longer leash and off leash. But I do usually like leashes are 4 feet or 6 feet are the standard. Definitely not 4 feet. That's way too close. And we're kind of on top of them. They don't have much freedom of movement. 6 feet is okay. I just got Lola like an 8 or a 10 footer. Sweet spot. She's got plenty of room to walk and sniff on our walks. I can kind of maintain my pace while she's sniffing. Maya mentions huge fan of 10 or 15 foot leashes. So great for these little guys. I can kind of reel her in safely. Like, she's not obviously doing anything unsafe. In case you haven't noticed by now, I'm kind of a helicopter parent. Like, Lola doesn't do anything that puts her at risk. But I really like the 8 or 10 footers for the littles. It gives them some really nice freedom of movement. Riding in cars, critical for these little guys. It can be so tempting to just kind of throw them on the passenger lap, but you want to be really careful about what your setup is in the car. This is obviously a car carrier that buckles in, which I think is great. Again, I don't really have a specific brand or anything. I really like the bucket seats that you can clip them into, and they kind of sit in this little bucket. I'm sorry I didn't put a picture in. And the most safe, the safest that your dog will be is in a really secure crate in the back of the car, probably, or like a secure crate somewhere else. And they have these very specific, like, crash tested crates. So I want to say that this is you have the safest over here, right? And I think we're all aiming for safety, but we're not all going to get like the crash tested crates that are locked, drilled into the trunk. It would be great, but that's not what we're doing. So try to find the next best thing. Your dog is contained, safe, buckled in. You always just want to keep in mind what happens if you crash. God forbid. We have a lot of great questions about leashes that I want to talk about briefly. So do you have any suggestions for leashes that are lighter weight so that it does not take as much effort for them to walk with? Great question. So yes, they absolutely have lighter leashes. So you can do anything from, and usually if you look online, you're going to have more variety than if you go to a pet store, but they have very, very thin ones. And I should have even just brought them to show you. But yes, you can find, I have one that feels like a string. Like, it's very sturdy, but it's very clearly a small dog leash. And then biothane, which somebody else mentioned. Biothane is gaining a lot of popularity, especially in the longer leashes, the 8 or 10 footers. We've got a lot of incredible Etsy groups that you can find both on Etsy or on Instagram that create biothane leashes that are finally making them for small dogs. And biothane is really nice because it's waterproof, it's lightweight. You can get the really thin kind, it's sturdy. I love biothane. Oh, excellent. Maya put a link for Hightail Hikes, who I love, in the chat for some biothane options, which is great. Oh, everybody's chiming in about biothanes. Love it. Somebody else said, I use 6 feet, but worry about lack of control with anything longer than that, like leash reactivity with my Chihuahua. How do I get him close to me if he is out too far for me? This is an excellent question and super important. So I do not have a video of this. Unfortunately, I'm really sorry, but handling your leash is a very important skill if we are going to give some more space, because you're totally right. We can't have our little dog at the end of an 8-foot leash screaming and barking at somebody because they've been triggered. So getting comfortable reeling it in and kind of folding it up and gathering it up and then letting it out again, and then gathering it up and letting it out again is really important. I would practice that at home without your dog. What is really important when you need to get your dog close to you on a longer leash or any leash is as you gather it up, you walk to your dog. You do not pull your dog back to you. So we call it walking up the leash. As you gather up the leash, you're going to walk to your dog as it gets shorter and shorter. Your dog is not moving because they're probably looking at something, maybe barking. You're walking up to them. You are not pulling them towards you. So again, it's called walking up the leash, and it's really important. But those leash skills and that leash comfortability is very important for safety, and I appreciate you bringing that up. Custom biothane, good, very good. Anne-Marie mentioned without tension. So like if yes, and I'm assuming, Anne-Marie, you were talking about if we're trying to gather up the leash. Yes, we are, of course, aiming to get up to them quickly while keeping slack in the leash, because tension can create more tension and some reactive behavior, which we're going to talk all about reactivity in a little bit. I got a lot of videos for you. But I get it. Like sometimes, especially if we're worried and we're like, or our dog's barking, like you might tighten up on the leash a little, and that's okay. I would rather you practice getting to them quickly, or I would rather you focus on getting to them quickly without yanking them over to you. And then when things are calmer, you can practice gathering up that leash without putting a whole bunch of tension on it. Great point. Okay, body temperature. So these little guys, ooh, Anna's wondering, is it more difficult to teach small dogs to heel? Absolutely not. We're going to talk about that later. Don't worry. We really have to be careful about how quickly these little guys get cold. So trembling is an anxiety response, but you always want to look at the conditions. And if it is cold outside and your dog is trembling, they're cold. And I think these littles get cold very easily, especially the ones with less hair. Another quick question about the leash. Is biothane a material or a company? Biothane is the material, and thank you again for clarifying. Biothane, it's like this plasticky type material. It's great. So just be really careful about your dog and how they're feeling. Are they comfortable? Are they warm enough? In the same vein, be careful about putting a coat on them all the time and then they get too hot. So just be aware of that. I don't think any of you are, letting your dog freeze or anything, but it's an important consideration for small dogs that we keep track of their body temperature. A client that has a small dog, another Chihuahua got Lola an incredible little fleece lined jacket that I think is going to help her a lot, because as I'm sure many of you see, when things are too cold or too wet or anything like that, our dogs have a hard time going outside. So temperature control is really important. So let's talk about, we're going to dive into some more kind of training stuff. I have a lot of videos for you today. If you follow me on Instagram, unfortunately, a lot of these are going to be repeats because these are all videos that I I've basically stolen from my Instagram and repurposed. So you can find all of these on my Instagram, JW Dog Training, not my personal one, although you're more than welcome to follow me there. JW Dog Training. And I talk a lot more about this stuff in the captions. A lot of good info there. And it was really cool to be able to go kind of compile all my videos for this talk and grab from my Instagram. And we have so many small dog examples. So a lot of good stuff over there. So grooming for small dogs is a high need and another place where these little guys just get their communication completely plowed over, meaning they might be giving subtle signals, body language saying they're uncomfortable, or they might even be growling, anything like that, and we just hold them tighter and we get it done. So when possible, we want to give them some choice into the equation. We want to try to make things less stressful. Enjoyable is kind of a strong word. I don't know if for a lot of these guys we can necessarily make it enjoyable. It'd be great, but the goal is at least not miserable, not stressful, not causing reactions. So there is something called classical conditioning, and that is how any being feels about something due to associations that have been created. So a lot of dogs, when they feel scared, trapped, uncomfortable, if grooming hurts, all of that, if they have those experiences, then those experiences start to get paired with the handling involved for grooming, the visuals, like the scissors, the way that we need to hold them, all that stuff, all that, it's all just very negative for them, a negative association. And that's what causes any reactive behavior. So we want to try to change that association from negative to positive. Hey, when I touch you this way, or when I hold you this way, or use the brush in this way, it predicts good stuff for you. I'm going to show you a quick video. We are introducing the Dremel, which is a nail device. We're introducing the Dremel to this herd of Chihuahuas. This group of Chihuahuas is absolutely incredible. We are just doing classical conditioning, pairing the sound with food. And they like food. So if we can have the sound predict the food, then hey, the sound is going to start to be pretty awesome to them. It's all just classical conditioning. Remember Pavlov with the bell? So let's go ahead and watch this. Hopefully, I think I'm going to read it. I think there are captions here, but I'll just let you watch it. Listen for the sound of the Dremel.
Okay, you can do it from there.
So basically, hopefully you were able to see what was happening there, and please give me feedback if the videos are too choppy or you're not getting the message that you think I'm supposed to be getting. So basically, we were playing the sound and then giving treats, playing the sound and then giving treats. And initially, the dogs might go like, what is that? What is that sound? But then over time, they're like, yes, it's that sound. It predicts food. There's a question, was this their first time being introduced? I think for a few of them, yes. This was the very first time. And you might think, wait a second, you're supposed to be trimming their nails with that. And you're like, just holding it up in the room. What is that supposed to do? But if we think about all the different factors and pieces to a nail trim, the sound, holding their paw, the device close to their paw, the way we have to restrain them a lot of the times, there are a lot of different pieces. And so we break down those pieces and we address each one on its own. And then we kind of put it all together. So this is like baby steps. And we kind of just go from there. But It is so important to start where the dogs are comfortable. And, it's tough with a group because you saw, by the end there, one of the dogs kind of backed up while the other ones were like wagging their tail. So this is such an easy exercise to do in a group. But if we were to start getting a little closer and more specific, we would tweak it a little bit. Now, this was just meant to display one of the many ways that you can start to make grooming and the pieces of grooming, the steps to grooming, less scary, less stressful for your dog. The sequence for classical conditioning or counter conditioning, if they already don't like it, is really important. The thing that is either neutral or scary has to come before the thing that they love, because that way the association with the treats, the tasty food starts to bleed forward to the thing that they used to not like. And suddenly they're feeling a lot better when they hear the sound or they see the clippers or they smell the smell of the rubbing alcohol, whatever it is. And this stuff is really tricky. I'm not expecting you to be able to help your dog feel better from this one slide, but it's meant to show you what is possible, what can be important steps, what you can work with a trainer on. There's a lot of amazing online courses now that work on nail trims in a really positive way. Bridget, how long does the process usually take? A long time. It can absolutely be a long time because we are working with emotions, because remember, fear, stress, anxiety, discomfort, that is what drives reactive behavior. And there are no quick fixes for helping a dog or a being feel better. We have to go at their pace. The kind of efficiency of the training can be impacted by somebody's skill level, which is why working with a trainer is really important and making sure you're doing things correctly. You're not skipping steps. Skipping steps can also really delay progress. This is certainly not an easy or fast process, but again, we are dealing with emotions and stress, and those things do not change overnight. So it really depends. If you're working with a neutral, meaning like you have a puppy and they're totally neutral, they don't have any fear or stress around it, you can create that positive association pretty quickly, as long as you're not breaking their trust or doing things that cause you to backslide. But if you do have a dog who feels stress or anxiety about nail trims, it can be I don't even want to give a ballpark, but weeks, months, years, depends. This kind of falls under the label of what is called cooperative care. Cooperative care is kind of the idea that we work with our dogs when it comes to husbandry things or medical procedures or grooming, stuff like that, that we are trying to create a two-part, we're trying to create a system of communication where, yes, we need to get this thing done with our dogs, but we really want them to be participants in it as well, and when possible, opting in. Anna said, that's why I'm wary of training companies that claim to fix and solve your dog's behavior in a short time. 100%. We need to be extremely wary of anybody who promises quick fixes, because again, we are working with living beings who are having emotional reactions, and those do not change in 2 weeks. So Catherine, I'm so grateful that you bring this up. Catherine says, when you are doing something like that, so working with the Dremel, sometimes you don't have a choice about doing something when you aren't ready. Do you just accept the backslide and move on? So some examples are a nail trim, ear drops, things like that. Excellent question. Absolutely, there are going to be times in our dog's life when we have to do things for them for their own safety. And what I recommend with that, especially if you're doing training, is you make the picture when they don't have choice look completely different than the training you're doing when they do have choice. That can be anything from what you wear on the days that they don't, or the situations where they don't have choice. You always wear a specific hat that's like, this means you don't get that opt-out option that we normally have. It could be where you do the procedure. If you're doing a lot of training in a specific table or a specific blanket, don't do it anywhere near there. Do it in a new room, a different room. You want to make the training picture look completely different, so that even though it's likely to be stressful, it is certainly not going to have the choice that you're wanting. You're not totally undoing the work and the trust account that you're building in this other training picture that's going to look very different. It's a really good question. Rachel says, I use different color equipment. I love that. I think that's an excellent idea. There are so many ways to make the picture look different. And we have to be really careful about not drawing our dogs in under like false pretenses, like luring them over with food or setting up the training picture the exact way you would if you're building trust, like you're working on a mat or something like that, using a start buttons or whatever, and then suddenly grabbing them and doing the procedure. That would not, like, that would just like blow everything up. And so we really want to try to avoid doing that. You'd make the picture look totally different. Excellent. Ellen mentions we are still working on nail trimming. So when my dog really needs his nail trims, I go to the groomer or the vet. That's another great idea. Have the association with the stressful event happen elsewhere, unrelated to you or your home or wherever you're doing the training. Excellent, excellent ideas. Somebody else mentioned, Maya mentioned, the Academy for Dog Trainers has free resources for husbandry plans. And then Deborah also mentioned that there are car safety options at another link, centerforpetsafety.org. A lot of great stuff going on. Fear Free is a movement where they've expanded to like pet sitting and daycares and stuff, but it really started in veterinary care, where we try to take the stress out of a lot of this really stressful activities. So Lola's Vet is a fear-free certified vet. It is life-changing when you go to a fear-free vet. They have calming music. They use like calming pheromone spray. They use treats everywhere. They're very aware of body language. So we love fear-free vets. Highly, highly recommend if you can find a fear-free certified vet. It makes all the difference in these really stressful vet visits. So I have a couple other videos. I'll just let them play. This is Lola. So this blue thing in the front is a licky mat. I'm going to mute it. It's Taylor Swift playing in the background. You don't need to hear that. So this blue thing is a licky mat, and I have smeared something on it. Now I'm working with her jacket. I'm futzing with her jacket, which she is sensitive of, but this picture could look the same if you're working on grooming or something else. Your dog is, I have a towel down so she doesn't slip. It's not cold under her. And she has this licky mat. So she's really just distracted. But you know that dogs often don't eat if they're stressed. So even if I had a licky mat in front of her, if she was too uncomfortable, she wouldn't eat. Same thing with her taking a bath here. You all know the benefits of small dogs. We can be right in the sink. It is a huge benefit. And I'm just feeding her turkey. She does not like baths, but she's eating, so she's okay. And I'm trying to make it a little bit less stressful than if she wasn't eating. And, you know, again, it's something we had to do in that moment. And I just made it as least stressful as possible. Feeding. Food is huge for changing emotional associations. It can help to keep a dog calm. It can help to create positive associations. It can help to keep a dog in a decent emotional place, because remember, fear, stress, anxiety are typically what drive reactivity and aggression. So if we can try to avoid that fear, stress, and anxiety, help them feel good in these moments, they're going to see a big improvement in behavior. And of course, their stress levels are going to be much lower. So two super simple things where you can replace, you know, again, Futz, instead of messing with her jacket, say you're doing some grooming there, or, you know, the bath time can be so torturous for so many dogs, but there are a few simple things that you can do to make it a little bit less stressful. And remember too, I would recommend working on all of these things outside of what I call quote unquote emergency situations. Like there are ways to do training and recreate these situations when your dog hasn't just rolled in, you know, animal poop outside. So you have to give them the bath. If you can spend just a few minutes doing bath time training when it's not an emergency, you're going to have those emergency moments or the times they do have to get a bath much more positive. Okay. Picking up small dogs. So as we've talked about a bunch, small dogs are very portable, and humans have a really hard time not just scooping them up. And somebody said once, and I forget who it was, so I'm sorry, I can't give credit, but they made this comparison and I was like, oh. So if you think about the size of a small dog and how high we scoop them up when we put them into our arms. That would be like somebody just scooping us up and like zipping us up 4, 5, 6 stories. Again, when you think of how little they are and how far off the ground they go, and you think about how far that would be for humans, like it gives you this new perspective of, wow, that can be very unsettling and very startling and very frightening and uncomfortable. And so we have to be really careful about what we do with our littles and how frequently or how abrasively we scoop them up. So Courtney just said, I teach my littles an up command to prepare them, and I 100% recommend that. So definitely be mindful and thoughtful about how often you're picking them up. Do I think that we can never pick up small dogs? No, there are definitely times when I pick Lola up. But again, I really aim to give her autonomy, and I aim to resist my urge to just scoop her up. Like if she's, standing still on a walk, or she doesn't want to go towards something, or she doesn't want to participate in something, instead of just scooping her up and overpowering that, I really try to listen to her. So can you give your dog a way to tell you that they're ready to be picked up? I just had a wonderful conversation with one of my Chihuahua clients this morning, and he said that his dog comes over and puts his paws up on his knees and says, I'm ready to be picked up. And they have a little bit of a conversation of like, we go to reach for them, they move away, which is common. I think there can be a lot of conflict involved with wanting to be picked up or come up to where we are, because it involves a lot of looming and reaching, which we know can be scary. But I think that two-way communication, the dog says, hello, I'd like to come up now. And the guardian says, oh, great, excellent, thank you, and goes and picks them up. That can be a really lovely communication system. What can help so much is giving a cue that says, I'm about to pick you up, basically. So we say, what do we say? It's like one of those things you say in the moment, you're kind of hard to forget. I think we say up, like in a very specific inflection. So we go down to pick Lola up and I say up, and then I kind of gently scoop her up. It becomes predictable. We have more incredible suggestions in the chat room. I have a warning cue, pick up, to give her choice. Pick up is the cue to give her choice, because because this dog has arthritis, and so they try not to have her go downstairs. Yeah, I think there are plenty of times when having a dog who can be picked up easily can be beneficial, and that, or having arthritis and trying to avoid stairs is exactly the case. Somebody said that they count to 3. I think that's excellent. Oh, that's so cute. Amanda said, I'll ask her to sit and she will sit facing away from me when she's ready. So again, it's a conversation happening. You say, hey, and this is, so there are 2 different categories, right? There's the like, wait till the dog asks to be picked up, and then the, hey, I'm picking you up and you don't exactly have a choice, but I'm going to tell you that it's happening. So there are kind of the 2 different categories there. And so like Amanda saying, we have this conversation and she tells me when she's ready to be picked up. So cute. And then Anna says, I was watching Agility on TV and love when the dogs know what comes next. So they just leap into their handler's arms. There's a question, can we pick you up? Oh, these are just so, you guys, this is like totally warming my heart, because so again, if there's a time when they don't have choice to be picked up, even giving that cue of up or counting, anything like that, it creates predictability. So every time the dog hears 1, 2, 3, and they go up, they go, okay, I know what's going to happen. I'm going to be picked up in this way, likely X, Y, and Z is going to happen, and they'll be put down. So it takes the surprise and the uncertainty out of it, which can be so beneficial for stress levels. So incredible suggestions and stuff that you all do with your dogs. It's just lovely to see. So, and then you can always kind of counter any stress with being picked up or create a positive association with being picked up by pairing it with food. So either have a treat in your hand, pick them up and feed them. Remember, we want the potentially scary thing to occur first and predict the good thing. But that's a really great way to help them feel comfortable with being picked up as well. I love, love, love all of your suggestions, because I do think, like, with the littles, they being picked up is going to be a part of their life, whether it's a lot or a little. What I'm urging you to do is be mindful and make sure that we're not like, just scooping them up anytime they're doing something we don't want, and trying to be mindful of like, do I want to pick them up? Can they walk through this basically, right? I got really to the point where I didn't even want to pick Lola up like for pictures and stuff like that. Cause I was like, no, she just because she's little doesn't mean I could always have to pick her up. But like, I'm a little back more towards like, no, it's okay. As long as she's comfortable and she feels safe being picked up, like I can pick her up for pictures. Like I'm not like abusing her by not letting her stand for those 10 seconds. But I think it's important to be mindful of how much are we trying to overpower them and move them and hold them and take away that autonomy. It's so much of dog training. Like, I really hope that you all are able to hear advice from professionals and take it as something to be curious about, not necessarily like if you do this, you're terrible, or like you must always do this at this time, or you always must do this at this way. Like, so much of information is just like, okay, wow, maybe, okay, yeah, picking up removes a dog's autonomy and ability to move freely. Like, wow, when do I find myself picking up my dog? Oh, do I have to do it every single time like that? Are there ways to give my dog more choice? It's all about getting curious. One thing that I want to talk briefly about is, and this is an interesting one, picking little dogs up when presented with a dog-dog scenario. So whether that is a dog has approached on leash, a dog is, you're nervous about your small dog, maybe they're reacting a little bit. I'll save the reaction one for later, but let's talk about safety when it comes to an unwanted interaction with another dog. Now, again, trainers on the internet will tell you, don't ever pick up your dog in around another dog. Like, it's going to make the other dog even more curious about your dog and cause them to jump and get more excited. You will find me picking Lola up if I am worried about her safety, because I would rather pick her up and deal with the consequences there than deal with the consequences of a large dog getting access to her on the ground. I don't think we necessarily as a profession have like agreed upon standards here. Again, as a Chihuahua mom, I'm going to absolutely intervene and get my dog out of there if I see trouble brewing, or if I see a dog coming that I do not want her interacting with, which is going to be most of them. She is extremely fear reactive, and we have to be extremely concerned about our small dog safety when it comes to prey drive, when it comes to just the size difference with a lot of big dogs. I know you all are aware of the safety, but it does not take many shakes in a big dog's mouth to kill a small dog. So I am extremely risk averse. I would rather choose the risk of picking my small dog up and dealing with it than letting my small dog stay on the ground when an unknown dog approaches. I'm talking, you know what I mean? Like, the big, huge dog comes barreling over, and like, you don't know if it's friendly or it's not acting friendly, or your dog is not comfortable around other dogs. Like, you're absolutely right. Anne-Marie mentions it all depends. Absolutely. But there are a number of factors and you have to go with your gut, but I will be picking up. Yeah, Anne-Marie also mentions a lot of great options for using your surroundings, like putting your dog in a trash can, putting them up on a car. Like, with littles, I take no risk. There will be no option spared when it comes to keeping everybody safe. Okay, so let's talk briefly about Anna mentions, I hate when people with off-leash dogs just allow their dog to approach mine without asking, probably because he is small and looks harmless. 100%. It's just like when, people go and reach and approach without asking or worrying, because people automatically see small dog and think it's less, they don't have to worry as much. Treats and training. We're going to talk about that, Bridget, treat size and not hurting our dog's weight and stuff like that. Yep, Ellen, off-leash dogs that run up to my fearful pup drive me crazy, especially when they're screaming he's friendly, extremely frustrating. It would be beneficial for everyone to carry spray shield on them. It is citronella spray, because again, this goes back to our advocacy talk and advocating for your dog. It can be very uncomfortable to spray an unknown dog with this harmless citronella spray, but it's less uncomfortable than your dog getting seriously injured or traumatized, which it's so important to note that physical damage is not the only trauma that a dog can or will come away with when approached and rushed by an off-leash dog. They don't even need to have any physical harm done for there to be long-lasting psychological and emotional mental damage done. So emotional harm can be just as bad as physical harm. Keep those babies safe. A lot of other good stuff happening in the chat. I'm going to keep going. Look at me. I'm like, oh, I'm not going to keep you for 2 hours, and I think we're only halfway. We got a lot of good stuff to cover. Okay. So small dog needs, small dogs absolutely need exercise, physical exercise. So walking can be good, but a lot of these guys, especially younger, under 2-3 years, they can be perfectly happy sleeping at home, but they also could benefit from running and playing and really getting their heart rate up and breathing heavy and panting. That exercise is really important for them. Walking can fill this need. We're lucky with the littles that you have a few good runs and good tosses can often tire them out, versus again, a larger dog is going to need more than that. But walks should also be, in my opinion, for sniffing. So, or walks are in a really important place to get sniffing. So we can't always rely on that for physical exercise. Daily enrichment, we're going to talk about training. This is our kind of what we're going to get into. Choice and control over their environment. We've talked about this a bunch. When we can safely give them choice, it is really important to do so. And most importantly, our small dogs need to feel safe. And it is so critical to know that just because we think our small dogs are safe does not mean that they feel safe. Feeling safe and being safe are actually two different things. So our dogs can feel unsafe and scared and nervous, even if they are safe. And that's really important to understand. And we're going to look at their body language to see how they're feeling, which we'll talk about. So small dogs need enrichment. Enrichment is the idea of giving dogs outlets for species-specific behaviors. So dogs are going to be dogs. Dogs have needs around being dogs. Sniffing, chewing, licking, playing, training. These are all really important needs, and a lot of behavior issues can actually be significantly improved by simply meeting these needs. Giving your dogs outlets for sniffing, chewing, licking, destroying, giving them proactive outlets for that can help so much. It can be really helpful to look at the hashtag on social media enrichment, because there are tons of amazing DIY ideas out there. This toy you see here is obviously a food puzzle that you can buy, and they have a lot of great enrichment options online, but you can also make a lot of good stuff. So incredibly important to meet these needs every single day. This is a book called Canine Enrichment for the Real World. There it is. And so these are like your two categories of learning more. You can go scroll social media, which I think the enrichment category is pretty safe. Not everything you see on social media I'm going to want you to follow, but enrichment is pretty safe. But if you want to dive a little deeper, this book, Canine Enrichment for the Real World, by my incredible colleagues, Allie and Emily, it's an incredible book. I highly recommend it. It is so important to know enrichment is essential. It is not an added bonus. It's not something that you do just because, or it's not like something you want to add to your dog's day because you want to be nice to them or you think they deserve it. No, dogs need enrichment because of what we expect from them in the human world. We need to give them doggy outlets all day long. Enrichment, sniffing is a super important one. We as humans often want to when we're on a walk, like hustle our dog past sniffs, I want you to try to stop doing that. Let your dog sniff. It tires them out. It is so good for them mentally. It calms them. Sniffing is so important. I'm going to show you this quick enrichment idea for some sniffing at home versus sniffing outside on walks. So there are a lot of ways to give your dog sniffing outlets, both at home and on the walks. And I really encourage you, let your dog sniff. Get rid of the distance that you would like to cover, because it is your dog's walk. If you're really trying to get your steps in, then walking with your dog is probably not going to be the best option in order to meet both of your needs. It is perfectly fine if you want to get your steps in, but your dog really needs to sniff and wander and explore, and it's really important for them. So you might consider doing kind of your power walks separately. It's really, really important that dogs get a lot of sniffing time. Lots of information about the P-mail happening out there. Yes, it's like they're scrolling social media. It's their decompression time. It's extremely important. These are some other options for enrichment, Kongs, licky mats. Again, check out, this is more for like chewing and licking. Younger dogs are usually going to benefit more from these things, but you can see Lola up here enjoying her Kong, her licking Kong. So there are a lot of reasons to provide outlets for this, dog dependent. And Deborah also put a link for at-home scent work, which is also really great to do. Lola loves the Find It game. That really zaps her brain power as well. And that's an important thing to remember about enrichment. It's a win-win. It tires your dog out, satisfies their needs, and makes them very easy to live with. So providing these outlets helps everyone. Leslie is worried about, we're going to talk about treats in a second, Leslie, asking about using food in training. All right. You all have to tell me if this video plays, because I've had issues in the past with this step. So
Charlie, drop. Good girl, let's go. Good job, good job. Whoa, good girl. Get it.
Oh, you all are stuck on the wrong side. Oh, man, this always happens. Eric, give me 1 minute, y'all. I'm gonna have to stop my screen share for a second. Just give me 1 second. So you all missed my chewing slide. It's very nice of you to just listen, and it's very nice of you to listen and oh, how do I get it out of this? Just like keep listening to me, even though I was very much not. Okay, there we go. Not coming up on the screen. Here we go. Thank you for your patience. All right. Okay, this was the enrichment slide that I was talking about. Some of the enrichment options, Lola enjoying her Kong, chewing and licking options. We just talked about this. Here are some visuals with it. All right, we're going to talk about play. Play is critical for small dogs as well. Somebody mentioned flirt bowl in the chat. Here it is.
Drop. Good girl, let's go. Good job, good job. Whoa, good girl. Get it. Good girl. Good girl, good girl.
Very cute. So that was using a flirt pole. Marley said you're only seeing that. No, I think everybody should be. You just saw the flirt pole video, right? So this is a dog using a flirt pole. I love a flirt pole for playing, but you can also, especially with your small dogs, get low on the ground with them, see what they like. Do they like tug? Do they like chasing toys? Do they like when you bounce the toy around? Remember, play kind of just replicates like hunting and killing, and so, or like there's a lot of natural behaviors that occur in play that we that replicate in play, but kind of replicate other things. So yes, Dr. Amy Cook's Play Way is a really good one, but learn how to play with your dogs and see what they like. There's so much, it's good for bonding. It's good for stress levels. Again, with these littles who can hang out on the couch a lot and be perfectly easy to live with, getting these outlets you might not realize that they need this, but they can really come to life when we give them these play options. Very good. Oh. So play with other dogs. Not all dogs are going to enjoy playing with other dogs, especially as they age. So for a small dog, maturity is they're not going to be an adult until about 1.5 years, which is significantly sooner than a larger dog. Small dogs mature much more quickly. And so if your small dog really enjoyed playing with other dogs when they were younger, they can start to not enjoy that as they get older. And this is very common. They just age out of play. And it's very similar to how, like, when we're in our 20s, some of us, we love like going to the bar and staying out late and hanging out with our friends. We're so social. And then as we age and hit like our 30s, our 40s, we're like, yeah, I'm good at home with a glass of wine, maybe like 1 or 2 close friends, but I don't need all that rowdiness. Again, most of us, everyone's different, but that is a typical trajectory. So you just want to pay close attention. Is your dog having fun? Is their tail up? Are they participating? Unfortunately, I see a lot of dogs who just get, again, like they're just totally taken advantage of in play because they might be hiding. They might look like they're participating, but they're really just defending themselves. And so we have to be really concerned in play and very careful, especially if there's any kind of size difference. Be so, so, so careful with your dog playing with other dogs, unknown dogs especially, and unknown dogs or dogs of different sizes, dogs that have rough play styles. It is not uncommon for play to have a lot of arousal, excitement levels are building to then tip over into aggression. So again, a lot of safety concerns with other dogs, but just be really mindful. I can't dive too deep into kind of like play body language and what to look for, what's good play, what's bad play, but know that there is a lot of bad play. Well, that wouldn't be play, but there's a lot of bad red flags in play. I'm not sure if your dog's friend has done any play webinars, but maybe if you all have, we can put the link in there. I know social media has a lot of good stuff about dog play and what to look out for. So training, these littles absolutely benefit from training 100%. They love it. They thrive with it. They benefit from it. There is this stigma that little dogs like can't be trained or don't like training or not as fun to train. I completely disagree. I'm going to let you watch this sweet little video of little Charlie here. We are at Lowe's or Home Depot. This is a few years ago. And she's young here. She's a teenager, probably 6 or 7 months. And look at her thriving. She's focused. That's her using my jacket as a place cue. We're just working a little bit on duration here, working on place around distractions, and she is crushing it. Look at her. Give her a little treat for that. Release her, and we go on. Just a little click. There is so much value in training with positive reinforcement. It builds your bond together. It creates the important skills needed to navigate the world together. It's great mental enrichment for them. There are so many reasons to train, and just gone are the days that we think littles are not excellent little trainers as well. Lola loves training. Anna asks, is this clicker training? So I do a lot of clicker training with dogs. I didn't have a clicker here, but clicker training is a form of positive reinforcement training where I use a specific marker. Dog trainers, people who train their dogs, use a marker that conveys that's exactly what I wanted. Now here's what you want, which is the treat. It allows for really clear communication. It allows for great timing. And so this was marker training, but I wasn't using a clicker here. So it is one thing about training. It is so important, especially we have already mentioned that these guys run nervous, stressed, anxious at times, some dogs. It's really important that you do not use any training that includes aversives or force or punishment techniques or, bark collars, prong collars, shock collars. It's really important that you avoid those with your dog because all of those rely on punishment procedures and whether I'm not talking about necessarily the layman's term of punishment. I mean, anything that is used to reduce a behavior, that is a punishment procedure in the scientific term, and those come with risks. They risk breaking your bond. They risk causing avoidance behaviors. They risk increasing aggression and reactivity. It's just not worth it. It really breaks my heart when I see small dogs on especially shock collars, but definitely like prong collars. My goodness, I would never use it, but I can see why people think that they're important for large dogs out of control. But my goodness, there is no need to put an aversive collar on a small dog. It's just not necessary. They thrive with positive reinforcement training, as do all dogs. And their confidence builds, they bond with you. It is absolutely not necessarily and can really cause harm to use aversive techniques with littles or any dogs. Catherine said, my dog has some nervousness, but her kind of drive to be a companion makes her so easy to train in other ways. People underestimate how smart they are. I completely agree. People underestimate how responsive these little guys can be with training. They have so much potential. Anna said, when I had my first dog, I used a training company that marketed themselves as positive only, but used spray bottles. I was naive at the time about training. So unfortunately, Anna, I am so sorry that happened to you. And that is common. There's a lot of marketing gimmicks, including like Bridget, who just said a trainer said that a prong couldn't hurt my 6-pound dog. That is simply not true. These tools work because they are uncomfortable. Again, emotions out of it. It is the science. Dogs are working to avoid the pressure. So it is, and the bottom line is it all comes with risks, and it is just not worth it because we have so many incredible options for training that don't involve fear, force, or pain. So let's talk about that training now. So common behavior issues. I think I have, yes, I do have this, everybody's asking about treats, and I do have that coming up soon. A lot of the common behavior issues with the littles, we've talked about it a bunch. Noise sensitivity. What that means is they hear noises and they bark at them. So noises that they hear at home. Fear-based reactivity, meaning they are scared by something, they feel threatened by something, and they bark at it. And then quote unquote demand barking, which is a label that I do not like because I think, in my opinion, they are bids for attention. It is attention behavior. And if our dogs are asking for our attention, there's a good chance that there's a reason for that and their needs have not been met. So I do not like the label demand barking. Of course, for these littles, we've got on-leash reactivity and then biting, unfortunately, in some cases, meaning aggression. So they're growling and biting to get their message across. These are some of the categories we're going to talk about right now. So management for barking inside. If you have a dog who barks at things that they see or they hear, management is a term that does not involve training. It involves controlling the environment. I have actually a whole webinar about management that I've done for Your Dog's Friend that has a ton of solutions like this, but there's a lot of things you can change about your environment that make life a lot quieter at home. The first one being window film. So if you look at Lola on the left here, you might not even be able to notice, but about a foot at the bottom of our glass door, we have put up window film, meaning she cannot see what's outside. When we first moved in the spring, she would notice the people our neighbors who would walk on their deck, and she would start barking at them out of nowhere. I mean, you all know it. You've heard the alarm barking, like, God, it's like your soul leaves your body. It's so loud. And because, we have other training goals and it's hard to train these because it happens when we're not there to intervene a lot of the time, we just wanted to manage the environment. We put up that window film and it has reduced her barking 100%. She doesn't bark at anything that she can see now out that door because, well, she can't see anything. So we can have that door open all day long and she doesn't bark at anything. What you see next to that picture is a white noise machine. So the window film, or closing your blinds or closing your doors or whatever, covers the visuals, and the noise machine covers the sounds. Now, of course, neither of these are going to be 100%, but if you can reduce the stimuli that your dog barks at, even like 50 or 60%, let alone 80 or 90, I think a lot of us would be really happy. So the noise machine, it's best to put between your dog and the source of the noise. That's why you can see it directly next to the door here, because the source of the noise, all this, the stuff my dog was barking at, was on the other side of the door. So we put the noise machine there versus like on the back side of the room. That wouldn't be as effective. Management also can be helpful to put your dog in a crate or a separate room when guests are over. That really is pretty standard across the board for dogs who are reactive to strangers. So that would be better to be investigated, or if you want to learn more about that, in a stranger danger webinar that your dog's friend has. Thank you, Deborah. She put my management webinar in the chat. So management is hugely helpful. We love it at our house. I really like to focus most of my training and my bandwidth like outside on walks, which Lola has done great at. So inside we manage. If we have a really quiet day and she's hearing people, you know, shutting their car doors, stuff like that, I just turn on some music or the white noise machine, and that solves that. It's very easy, very low lift. It is so important to give your littles a safe space. A case study that I have about this is, well, just in general, it's so important to have a place where they feel like they can go and hide for a lot of dogs. Not all dogs necessarily have like a flight behavior programmed into them, or they don't choose flight. They're choosing fight more often. But you'd be surprised when you give a dog an area to retreat and hide and recharge when they are scared. That means when they do come out, they can feel a little bit better about the world, and it means that they're choosing to participate. So anytime you give them an opportunity to say no, it means that their yeses are likely going to be a little bit stronger, a little bit more reliable. So again, a quick case study. Anna says, should this be something separate from their crate? No, I think the crate is great. If your dog likes their crate, then that's absolutely great in terms of giving them a place where they know that they can retreat to and hide if things get too overwhelming. One of my clients, when he was younger, he was hiding under the couch a lot, and we thought he just wanted to be under there, but it turns out he was actually hiding from the other dog, and he was actually really scared, which showed up later as he matured. But you know, he really needed that hidey spot. I wonder, you know, if he had a crate, or no, I think he had it. I don't know if he had like a space where he could go where he felt safe more frequently, if that would have helped from his relationship deteriorating from the other dog. I also had a client case study where this Chihuahua, again, was hiding under the couch a lot, and this dog was really afraid of my client's partner, and the dog never had somewhere to go because the dog didn't feel comfortable enough like leaving the room and like going to a different room. Like, of course, if a dog is scared, we would love for them to just be like, I'm going to go check out now and take themselves to another room. But dogs don't always do that. They want to still be close. And so we created this safe space where the dog could retreat to and be, where they were still kind of part of the action, because it didn't spike any separation distress, anything like that, but they felt safe in there. And more importantly, there was a very important rule: you never reach for the dog or go for the dog if they're in their safe space. So think of safe spaces as the more you give them to say, the more you allow them to say, no, I don't want to interact, I do not want to participate in this, the more that their yeses, I feel good about this, I want to come do this, I want to engage, I want to check out the guests, the stronger those yeses can become. Okay, so you changing the way you interact with littles can really improve how they feel. So you want to think about any type of square face on, like head on body language can be very intimidating and scary to all dogs, especially littles. So we want to think about facing our shoulders away and kneeling down to their level, but facing shoulders away. letting them choose to come to you instead of you going to them. Direct eye contact is another one that from strangers, not from their own humans, but from strangers, they can find very threatening. So we want to avoid staring them right in the face. And then we really, really want to avoid cornering them. So this is an old photo that I have with a big dog, but just pretend it's a small dog. So you'll see that I'm kneeled down. I'm not making eye contact. My shoulders are not faced directly towards her, even though this is a very, like it's not a strong pointing away. Yeah, that dog was very uncomfortable in that video. Good observation, Amory, on the whale eye. This is just an example of how I would typically greet a little. I might like tap my leg, but I am certainly not. I wish I had kind of the opposite, which would be, you know, what a lot of people do is like bending, leaning towards. So it can be really important to change your body language to help them feel more comfortable. All right, we're going to talk about on-leash reactivity now. So it is so important to know that on-leash reactivity so let's define reactivity: barking, lunging, growling in response to a trigger. So an overreaction. All dogs react to things because they're alive and therefore they're reacting, but an overreaction to a trigger. So it is most often rooted in fear. And this is what I want everyone to understand is it is rarely, I mean, I am a behavior consultant. I have seen hundreds, thousands of dogs at this point. It is rarely an offensive, like confident based aggression. That is so rarely the case. The most reactivity and aggression that we see is rooted in fear. I don't want you to come near me. I don't want you to, I don't like seeing you. I don't feel comfortable in your presence. I don't want you to move towards me like that. It is all rooted in fear. And that's really important to understand because, again, these displays of reactivity can be really big and we think it's so confident and big and bad and our dog is being so loud and confident. Again, that is not the case. They are doing what they know to prevent scary things from occurring in their mind. It absolutely can be addressed. It's not a lost cause. A huge piece to reactivity training is teaching foundation behaviors at home. So that goes back to our little dogs trainable. Absolutely. Foundation behaviors can be really important, but a lot of reactivity training is rooted in addressing that underlying fear. And that is critical for improving reactive behavior, is addressing the underlying issue. Suppressing the behavior you're seeing, correcting the barking, correcting the lunging, does not address the underlying root of the issue. So reactivity training revolves around making a dog feel better. But the foundation behaviors can be really important. So making sure your dog knows to look at you, they can respond to their name. Honestly, like those kind of the two main things that I need. I don't need a heel. I don't need a sit, stay. I don't need anything crazy. I just need my dog to know to look at me or respond to their name. This is where I start having a lot of videos, a lot of good stuff for you all to look at. We're kind of in the tail end. Sorry for smashing it all in. Let's talk about treats. Small dogs absolutely can and should have treats in training. Do we need to be more mindful about the treats that we use? Yes, definitely. The good news is, as long as you're getting a squishy treat, which is pretty much what I recommend regardless of size of dog, you can rip it or pull it into the tiniest piece of treat that you need. So it really just needs to be a little taste for the littles. So you take like these nudges here that I love, you could take one nugget on a walk and it should last you the whole thing because you can rip off the teeny tiniest piece every repetition. A lot of people are worried about treats and I get that, but you'd be surprised as long as we are being very mindful about the size of the treat and mindful that our dogs are still getting exercise, it is not as damaging. Treats are not as worrisome as you would think. Some people will cut back on meal calories. I do not skip meals altogether, either before training or after training. I think kind of the routine of meals is really important, but some people will pull away from meals. I also do not use deprivation or meals in their entirety for training, because I think that dogs being able to eat without having to do anything is also important. They can train for some of their meal, but I don't have them train for all of it. Have a question. All right, Alan asks, is reactivity being rooted in fear the same for big dogs? Over the years, we've had 6 Shibas and now an Akita. Woo. He loves puppies and small dogs, but can be reactive to big dogs. He doesn't do doggy trash talk. So yes, fear can absolutely be the root of on-leash reactivity for any size dog. And even if it's not, so fear, we think of fear in the sense of like, oh, I'm so scared. But it can also just be a negative association in that, like, I'm not so comfortable with what you're doing, or I don't really love, I don't feel comfortable with the way that you're moving. I don't feel comfortable with the way that you look. I prefer if you didn't come closer. It's all negative feelings, negative associations. And so our goal with reactivity is to pair the trigger with something the dog likes, similar to what we were doing with the grooming, so that instead of going, I don't really like seeing that. Oh, I feel comfortable with that. I'm not so sure about that. The dog will go, oh, there's that big dog again that last time I barked at, but then I got treats. So maybe you're not so bad to see. So we're changing that association. And there's a ton of amazing resources on Your Dog's Friend about reactivity. Again, I could talk about it. Many trainers have talked about it for the full 2 hours. So lots of good stuff on there. Yes, thank you, Deborah, for sharing that. Oh, Maya said, I adjusted caloric intake and my 11-year-old is at her ideal weight and she has been trained with treats for 11 years. It is possible. Anne-Marie says lamb liver bites are great. Yes, I agree. Lola is fully trained on treats. The other day we noticed her waistline was not looking the way that it usually does. And I was using treats that were harder to break up. So that we took that data and said, okay, we're going to go back to the treats that are really easy to break into teeny tiny pieces. So it can absolutely be done. So we do have some training considerations for small dogs, and that is they are very far from our hands. Their mouth is very far from us, and I am 5'10" with Lola. You can see me squatting over there all the way down. So be prepared to get your squats in, to spend a lot of time bending over when you are training your small dog. That being said, this is another small dog hack. You can watch this. It does have text with it. It doesn't have, I took the music off, so I'll go ahead and read the text. Oh, actually, the timing will be off. You all can read it. So basically using a cooking spoon to buy yourself a little bit more distance. I know it feels crazy to think about like walking around the neighborhood with spoon with peanut butter on it, but I've seen it help a lot of my clients, especially if there are any back issues. It's important to make training accessible as much as we can. So this can really help. Using a marker signal like we were talking about earlier, saying yes or using a clicker also buys you time to click the behavior you like and then deliver the treat. I do tossing a lot with dogs, but that being said, like there are some behaviors that I really like to feed to their mouths. So I use it all with little dogs, but mechanics, human trainer mechanics, 100% impact training success. Meaning if we are slow, if our timing isn't correct, if we are not frequent enough, all of that can impact our dog's ability to respond and be successful with the training, which means we have to find these tweaks for small dogs. It's really important. So Jessica asked, do you like Pupford treats? They aren't soft, but I think they're lower calorie than typical. Yes, I love Pupford treats. I work closely with Pupford. The fresh ones can be broken up in half, and I find them to be very high value. And they're great. They're also, I like them a lot for big dogs, so they don't have to break them up. The spoon takes a bit of practice, but it helps. Yeah, Amanda, definitely, like anything, a lot of this stuff takes practicing our own mechanics and getting clean with our own mechanics and timing before things get hard with our dog? Excellent questions. Yeah, ZB peaks are great. A lot of good stuff. I do have, if you follow me on Instagram, JW Dog Training, I have an Amazon list of treats that I like. Not that you have to get them through Amazon, but we're always asked for treat recommendations. Squishy is my top recommendation. All right. Okay, so let's talk briefly about foundation behaviors. For me, again, what I care most about pretty much for reactivity is a dog's ability to respond to their name, their ability to look at me without being prompted, and their ability to eat outside. If your dog cannot take treats outside, you cannot address their reactivity because it means that their anxiety levels are too high. This is something I always get asked. Well, what do I do if my dog doesn't take treats? That's like asking, how do I get into shape if it hurts when I exercise? You cannot get into shape without exercising. And if it hurts when you exercise, that's something you've got to address before you try to go on a journey of getting into shape. So that's another reason why working on one-on-one with a trainer can be really important. This is a video from my Instagram. This is showing how I teach default attention, meaning your dog choosing to look at you without being prompted. Yes, being able to respond when you say their name is important, but for me, having them choose to look and respond to me when I don't ask is also extremely important. Go ahead and watch.
We love building eye contact from our dog by capturing it, meaning we wait for our dog to offer it unprompted, and then when they do, we mark yes and give them a treat. We will sometimes play the game you see here where we deliver the treat on the ground to intentionally set our dog up to look up at us again. This concept and activity is so simple, but doing it over and over again over time can really build your dog's engagement even in more distracting scenarios.
And that is Leslie McDevitt's up-down game, a pattern game. It's a simple pattern game and it builds that automatic attention. It's very easy, and that's as simple as it can be to start teaching some of this automatic attention. So again, I'm going to show kind of how some of the pieces to addressing leash reactivity or, stuff like that. But I'm going to put resources at the end for how to learn more about how to teach your dog this stuff. It would be, I'm already basically out of time, but it would take me forever to detail how to teach all this stuff. So I'm going to kind of pepper in some videos for you to watch and get curious about, but for more in-depth stuff, you have to be kind of working with a trainer, going somewhere else to learn about this. Okay, this is another video that it's narrated by me. This is a client. The Chihuahua he's reactive. He's getting so much better. This client has done so much work. You'll see she has the spoon. I don't know how much she uses the spoon with the cream cheese here. The dog that we're trying to prevent him to react from is across the street. I talk about it, pay close attention because the voiceover explains exactly what's happening. And this is where reactivity, it's not a one thing to do every single time. There are so many things to do and tools to choose from and decisions to make in the moment. So you'll see it in action here. Pay close attention.
This is a real-life reactivity training session with a Chihuahua named Archie. We are working through passing a dog that's off-screen across the street to the left. You'll notice Archie's ears perk up every time he notices the other dog, at which point his guardian tosses a treat ahead to both reward Archie for calmly noticing the other dog and not reacting, and to briefly engage Archie in the alternative behavior of following and eating the treat. As we successfully pass this dog, we notice two dogs coming up that Archie previously reacted to on this walk. They're large dogs and there's two of them, so they're a much harder trigger for Archie than the dog we just passed. We don't want to risk Archie having a reaction, especially seeing these dogs so closely to the one we just passed, so we opt to make space by using our own movement, tossing treats, and the leash to guide Archie away from the two big dogs. Archie does notice the two dogs, so his ability to disengage from them and move with us is a big win.
So reactivity training is not always going to be clean. It's not always going to be boom, 1, 2, 3. It can be a little chaotic. And this is where, this trainer, this handler, this guardian is an extremely skilled handler. And she's becoming a very skilled trainer because she's able to make those decisions in the moment. And that is being empowered to choose what to do, depending on what triggers come up, is a huge part of reactivity training on your end as the human. A quick question Jessica asked, this is a little off topic, but is there a reason to use a clicker even if you have a good yes marker for training? To use verbal and clickers for the same dog? excellent question. I think there can be benefits to using a clicker because of it's just such a clear, precise sound versus the yes, which is still our voice, can still be, it's not as clear necessarily. That being said, having to carry a clicker around on walks, some guardians are really good at it. Sometimes it's a little bit too much to keep track of. I personally use a clicker most often when I'm doing specific training sessions at home, shaping sessions, teaching new behaviors. I don't really carry them as much on walks, but some of my clients do carry them on walks. So it's kind of interchangeable and depends on the dog. Really good question.
This is a
Okay, again, so here I'm going to show you a clip of a client starting to create a positive association by simply giving the dog a treat. This is very simplifying it, but giving the dog a treat anytime the dog notices the man walking on the sidewalk. This is years ago, and I'm happy to say this dog is doing great right now. When they first brought her home, this dog was fearful of the husband and growled and barked at him. And so we're doing this exercise to create a positive association outside of the house where it's a little bit more open. This is like very much basic foundation step one. And then we built from there, and they're happily integrated now, which is really exciting. So I think I give some instructions here. I'm going to make sure that the volume is all the way up. Otherwise you can kind of just watch and see what you take away from it.
Going to be click the look. Hey. Good, you can click her for dropping it.
Oh, good. This is they're using.
Okay, all right, Mike, go ahead and get started. Good, great. No, that was great. That was perfect. Good. Good choice to click that look. Yes. All right, now you're gonna go ahead and wait for her to look back at you after looking at him. Lovely. Great job, Mike, you're doing great. Wait for her to look at him again. Beautiful. Mike, go ahead and keep going. Lovely. See her looking at him and looking back at you? Mm-hmm. Good. Yeah, you can click that. Good. Oh, she said, I want to go say hi to Dad. Good. Perfect. Wait till she looks. Yes. Very nice.
So again, a very simplistic description of what was happening there is every time she looked at her dad, she got a click and a treat. And so dad started to predict the good stuff, the stuff that she liked. We then started to actually want the choice of, I see dad and I know that predicts a treat, so I'm going to look at you. Because then you have a nice new behavior of looking back at the handler instead of barking and lunging. So very, very basic summary of some reactivity training. And that starts to change that dog's emotional association with the guy, with the man, from, ooh, I don't like you, you scare me, to, hey, maybe you're not so bad. That's all the goal is. And you can see there that the clicker was nice and making it nice and clear to the dog what she was getting clicked for. All right, biting. This is our last kind of chunk of stuff. So biting occurs when warnings are given and not listened to. I cannot stress enough, dogs are giving us warnings before they bite. We as humans, unfortunately, just do not know what to look for. And therefore, we either accidentally or intentionally ignore it. And in addition, small dogs, unfortunately, are often not taken seriously. Oh, they're just growling, whatever, you know, we're like, oh, they snapped, haha. And because their risk isn't always as high for doing damage, they're not taken as seriously, which is so they escalate to biting. They're like, fine, you're not going to listen to my growling, I'm going to bite. And if they are typically growling and biting, unless it's resource guarding, is requesting space. So like, I don't like what you're doing, please stop and give me space. And if that request goes ignored, many dogs will escalate. Many dogs who are absolutely patient and wonderful will not, which is not fair. But a lot of dogs will escalate and say, hey, no, I'm really asking for space here and you're not listening, so I'm going to snap or bite. Similar to resource guarding as well, they're giving warnings. This is what's called the canine ladder of aggression. I think this is so helpful because look at the behaviors at the bottom under the green. Blinking, yawning, lip licking, turning their head away. Would you think that that would eventually lead to biting? Not necessarily, but it absolutely does. Irene said, got a really horrible puncture wound from a really cute little Bichon. Yes. And that is important to remember. I mean, I'm sorry, I shouldn't be laughing. I'm laughing because, or it made that comment made me giggle because yes, absolutely. Like, oh, we see these cute little dogs, but like they can really do damage. Absolutely. And it's so important to understand body language. Really quickly, good body language we're going to talk about in a second. Really quickly, Rachel asks, what are your opinions on using treats too much outside of your house, like devaluing the treats? Do you only use treats a couple times a week in order to avoid devaluing your treats? I don't. So I use treats all the time, and I have a rotation of treats, meaning I have different treats to choose from to try to maintain the value. And I am really thoughtful about my high value treats, and I save those. So Bridget just asked about body language. Let's talk about it. So which ones here do you think are the obvious ones? Can you all see my cursor? Oh, bummer, you cannot. Okay. Oh, you can. Hooray. Okay. So this guy, obviously, this feels pretty obvious. This is extremely obvious. These are all dogs saying, oh my gosh, I need space. Stop what you're doing. Okay. But what about this guy? I'm going to talk what I see because I also have 5 minutes. So I'm going to tell you what I see. And I wish we could discuss more about this, but there are some great body language presentations as well. So yes, there's whale eye with this little guy. His ears are back. His mouth is very tightly shut. This paw raise, this is a appeasing signal. And to remove the label, it just means that they are uncomfortable. Ears are back, furrowed brow here, hunched over, trying to make himself small. This guy, his weight is all the way back. There's whale eye here. This is yawning. This tells us yawning is a stress signal. Ears all the way back, eyes, brows furrowed here, mouth tightly shut, looking very nervous. Photos are a moment in time. They don't tell us the whole picture. Head low here. Interestingly, those ears, they're not all the way back, but they're also not all the way forward. This seems like a dog who is wanting to keep eyes on a threat, but feeling quite uncomfortable. So pictures and time do not tell us the whole story, but they do give us a lot of opportunity to practice what we're seeing. Deborah put a link to some great body language videos that they have. Behavior modification. Basically, this slide, if your dog bites around strangers, around grooming, handling, around other dogs, resource guarding, it is so critical to seek out a qualified professional. I do not recommend DIYing your behavior modification. And in order to, because basically you have to change their emotions, right? You're trying to help them feel better. And where did I? Oh, okay. I have professionals. I have more resources in the next slide. But it really is important to work with a professional. You want to make sure that you give them choice with your little dogs. If they are scared, try to help them. Do not force them into situations. Learn canine body language through the link that Deborah just put up or through this doggy language book I love. Remember, this recording is going to be posted. So if you need to go back and look at any of these slides, you can. Resources for helping your small dog. This is so important. So this is where if you want to work with a qualified professional, these are the organizations that I recommend looking at. The good news about virtual training is you can get great help all over the country and the world. And you can do virtual training. You can try to find a trainer local to you in person. You can do group lessons if your dog is having kind of basic issues. Some people are also creating group classes for shy dogs, reactive dogs. There's a lot of incredible options out there. Sometimes it can be beneficial to bring in a veterinary behaviorist. That is the vet side of behavior. And that is the only veterinary behaviorists are paired. Veterinary behaviorist paired with a behavior consultant or a trainer that works with behavior could be kind of the sweet spot for a team support. I also want to give a shout out to my colleague, Mallory at Engineering Optimism Dog Training. She is starting a small dog virtual group class, I think in February. And she sent this to me when I posted about doing this webinar. And I love Mallory. She has 2 small dogs. So I highly recommend that you check out this class. It looks like it's a 4-week class. There's a lot of good stuff covered in it. You can go more in depth in this 2-hour webinar. And it's just so nice to work with trainers who have small dogs, who understand small dogs, and who tailor their training to small dogs. Oh, yay. Jessica said, I took Mallory's class and really loved it. That's amazing. Okay, so this is a cute little video that I made for Lola. And so this is going to be my sign off basically. And because over break, it was really cold and it was rainy. And if you know, I was holding the umbrella over her so she could pee in the yard while I got rained on. And I made this cute little video. So enjoy. So I just feel so strongly that the littles, look, they take some extra consideration sometimes, but it feels like the least we can do for everything that they do for us. And I know if you have a little, you have a very strong bond with them. So I love them to death. And thank you for being here. I'm sorry we couldn't get to kind of more questions at the end, but we got a lot of great questions in there. So please find me on Instagram, JW Dog Training. That is usually where I'm the most active and the most easily accessible, but you can also email me. This is my information. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I'm going to go ahead, and you all were so wonderful for being here. I'm going to stop my share and call it. So Deborah, unless you have something else to say, I will go ahead and we can be done and sign off. Thanks, everyone.
I just want to thank you. And I think everybody now knows why we repeated this webinar. It is one of the best.
Thank you.
Because you're one of the best speakers. And again, Juliana, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks, everybody. Bye.